Hey now, GameMasters here, and I thank you for joining me today. The burning question involving Dungeons & Dragons' newest book, The Wild Beyond the Witchlight, is, well, wait, first, I've got to give players a warning. This video is going to be full of spoilers, and it is 100% meant for Dungeon Masters only. Okay, so the burning question is, what exactly is the Witchlight Carnival? Yes, it is actually a carnival, but it's so much more. And to really understand what it is, we need to jump over to Ravenloft for a brief moment. Van Richten's Guide to Ravenloft, to be specific. And what we want to do is flip on over to page 84. With the carnival. So I'm going to kind of gloss over this because our focus for this video is going to be the Witchlight Carnival found in the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. But as mentioned, to understand it, we need to know a little bit about where it came from. The carnival in Ravenloft roams. It is a domain all unto itself, and it moves. And of all the domains of dread that can be found within Ravenloft, this one is the least gloomy. It can also travel to other domains and into areas beyond the mists, and can even allow inhabitants of the dread domains to leave their home domain, except for the dreadlords. But that's getting too deep into the Ravenloft mechanics. For this, we want to focus on who is the carnival's master, and that's Isolde. Isolde was an elf, holy warrior of the Feywild, and you're kind of starting to see a small connection between Ravenloft, the Feywild, and the Wild Beyond the Witchlight. She would defend the Feywild against demons, dragons, various threats. In one of her adventures, an archfey called Zablina made a deal with an entity called the Caller, who hunted down and killed all of Isolde's companions. Zablina then befriended Isolde, and Zablina convinced Isolde to visit a traveling Fey carnival, which acted as a gateway to Zablina's domain, and over time, Isolde became the master of that carnival. Zablina used a wish spell to kind of force Isolde to devote her life to the carnival and really to nothing else. The wish spell would eventually begin to dilute, and Isolde would long for the day when she could leave the carnival and find the Caller to exact revenge. Eventually, the carnival crossed paths with another carnival, this one from the Shadowfell, and this, folks, is the connection we are looking for. This other carnival was run by a pair of Shader Kai, elves from the Shadowfell, and Isolde made a deal for her and them to swap ownership of their carnivals. The stipulation was that the ownership would revert back when the two carnivals cross paths again in the future. Isolde uses this new carnival to help her track down the Caller, and really dreads the day when the two carnivals cross paths. Now, keep in mind, the carnival resides within the domains of dread inside Ravenloft, while the Witchlight Carnival exists within the Feywild. Okay, now that backstory has been laid out, let's talk about the Witchlight Carnival. Very important, you're going to have your tickets to get into the carnival. More on that in a little bit, though. The Witchlight Carnival is run by Mr. Witch and Mr. Light. Fairly easy way of naming said carnival, eh? As for the Witchlight's brief history, Witch and Light are the owners. They're the same Shader Kai that owned the carnival that roamed the domains of dread, although they went by different names then. Master Witch was known as Nerix Crumple, and Mr. Light was known as Yermius Umbridge. The two Shader Kai were mean, emotionally stunted, and cared nothing except for themselves. And after a night of heavy drinking, the two were convinced to trade carnivals with Isolde, the carnival being a dismal, dark, haunting place, the one that's in Ravenloft, and the Witchlight Carnival, of course, being one of wonder and whimsy. So they took the names of Witch and Light, and over time their dismal, downtrodden attitude kind of shifted to being more of a fun-loving and free spirit attitude. They really also dread the day when the two carnivals again cross paths. The Witchlight Carnival is not without its darker and sinister side. This is Dungeons & Dragons after all. Pulling strings behind those scenes and in the dark are three hags known as the Hourglass Coven. We'll talk about that. The Witchlight Carnival resides within a place called Prismere, which the hags control, and by virtue of that, to an extent, they also control the Witchlight Carnival. The hags know that Mr. Witch and Mr. Light are not the original owners, and know of their dread of giving up ownership of the Witchlight. They just don't want to go back to the Ravenloft dismal attitude that they had. The hags hold over them the threat of forcing a reunion of the two carnivals and reverting ownership back between them and Isolde. To appease the hags, Witch and Light allow them to steal from all visitors that enter the carnival without having an entrance ticket. That's why you need to have one. You don't want your stuff stolen. Witch and Light are also very aware of who Zimblina is, and greatly desire for Zimblina to defeat the hags so that they can remain the owners of the Witchlight Carnival, but they don't dare to openly talk about that desire out of fear of the hags forcing the two carnivals to cross paths. There's a map of the Witchlight Carnival on page 29, and a larger fold-out map in the back of the book. But on this map, there are two places that can be used to track two crucial elements: the passage of time and the carnival's mood. The Witchlight Carnival opens at dusk, runs for 8 hours, ending just before dawn. It suggested that you use a D8 and place the number 1 side up in the first slot of the time, and change it to 2, then move to 3, etc. as each in-game hour passes. It's a great way to encourage players from hanging out, and doing just mundane activities. And 3 events are going to happen throughout the night. In the first hour, welcome gifts are handed out to a select number of guests. You'll roll a d8 on a roll of 1, 2, or 3. The guest personality trait is changed to I am easily amused, and that lasts until dawn. On a roll of a 4, the guest gains a d4 die, which can be added to one ability check made before the next dawn. On a roll of a 5, 6, or 7, the guest gets a seed that turns into a gold piece. And on a roll of 8, the guest gains a d8 die, which can be added to one ability check made before the next dawn. In hour 4, the Big Top Extravaganza, that is here on the map, and this happens at midnight. Everyone piles into the Big Top tent. Excitement fills the air, the lights grow dark, and a hush falls over the audience. Mr. Light appears and begins to dazzle the audience with theatrics and acrobats involving many of the carnival's star performers. Now, if a player attempts to heckle Mr. Light, he'll try to interrupt, but if the player persists, then the carnival's mood can be lowered. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. Towards the end of the performance, Mr. Light will invite any player or audience member to perform, and upon wooing the spectators, the carnival's mood can be increased. Again, we'll talk about mood in just a moment. And finally, in hour 8, you have the crowning of the Witchlight Monarch. Everyone again returns to the Big Top to celebrate a single guest of the carnival. The player who helped boost the carnival's mood is the clear choice of being crowned by Mr. Witch. It is this event that is the launching point that will take the players from the Witchlight Carnival to the Wild Beyond, known as Prismere. But before we exit the carnival, we've got a lot more to cover. Let's talk about the other tracker on the map, the carnival's mood. And actually, speaking of mood, I would appreciate it very much if you're enjoying this video to click that like button. I'd appreciate it, and it would most certainly brighten my day. Thank you. So, the carnival's mood. Place a tracker on the, tracker here in the middle, and as certain things take place in the carnival, the players have an opportunity to increase the overall positivity of the carnival, or they can decrease things and pull out the negativity of the carnival. When the mood tracker hits its best possible happy face, here, the adventurers can progress forward with a small bit of help from the owners of the carnival. And if the mood tracker hits the worst possible sad face, while the adventurers will still move forward, the advantages that they could have had are just simply not presented. Now, what would a carnival be without rides, games, events, and really super yummy food? So, first things first, players need a ticket to get in. They're going to find the ticket booth. That's where you're going to buy the tickets. Tickets are 8 silver for adults and 3 silver for children. Now, when a player attempts to purchase their ticket, the ticket master will tease a little, but will eventually provide them with free tickets to them, that the players will only know as having been purchased by an unknown benefactor. Each ticket is good for 8 attractions, and any player wanting to experience more than 8 attractions must purchase a new ticket. Sneaking inside, so that's not something you want to do. Again, you need one of these. But patrons are issued both a ticket and a pair of fake butterfly wings. The wings are highly encouraged to be worn, as that is kind of the carnival's version of an entry band. It shows the guards, known as Witchlight hands, that the guest has actually paid to enter. And there are consequences for the guests that sneak in. So remember the hags from earlier? They are totally free to steal one item from anyone who does not have a ticket. At the end of each hour, anyone not wearing the wings must make a stealth check, I think it's a DC 15, or risk being seen by a Witchlight hand, which will result in the mood going down by 1 tick. As for the attractions, there's loads of them. We have the Big Top, which lots of things happen there, from mephits that entertain to a goblin juggler that can juggle up to 8 items, from the extravaganza at midnight to the crowning of the monarch at dawn. There are rides aplenty. There is the bubble top teapot, where guests can try to control a large bubble or indulge themselves in a hot cup of tea that does have magical properties. There is a carousel that a guest can ride upon unicorns and potentially learn some pretty major secrets about the carnival and Prismeer itself. There is a calliope, which is not really a ride, it's more music that plays. The better the mood of the overall carnival, the happier the music is. The lower the mood, the little more sad and dismal the music is. There are the dragonfly rides, in which players can also gain an advantage that can help them later in the chapter. There is gondola swans, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's gondolas pulled around by giant swans. And the entity that runs this ride, Featherine, could also potentially provide the characters with an advantage that could help them in a later chapter. There are more rides and attractions that the players can participate in, each one gaining them additional knowledge about a deeper mystery going on. And some of the games include playing hide and seek, Almirage ring toss, catch dragon by the tail, gnomish poetry contest, and more. And the prizes of winning these various games can vary from a trinket, I'll explain those in just a moment too, to a whimsical bottle of wine, to a toy spider, and more. The trinkets are just kind of small tokens that help add Feywild flavor to the game. A couple of examples: there's a pumpkin cupcake that magically regenerates itself in its paper cup at dawn each day. There is an empty bag marked as candy, a tuning fork that sounds the tone for the F key, a tiny dream catcher. There's a tiny coffin containing the ashes of a troll. All told, 100 different trinkets here, so you finally have that use for your D100. The one major thing that this first chapter does not go into is the carnival food. It talks a little bit about the food, but it doesn't go into much detail, and I'm a little disappointed there, as there's so much potential for fun things to happen based on the various typical carnival foods. You know, I mean, a crafty DM, you know, they'll be able to pull something out and plug that hole, because really, what is a carnival without some fun food to consume? Now, as dawn nears and the carnival monarch has been crowned, the players will be prompted to join Mr. Witch and Mr. Light in the Hall of Illusions, where Mr. Witch and Light will show them a mirror that will allow them to move out of the Witchlight Carnival and into the Prismere and into Chapter 2, known as the Hither. Okay, Dungeon Masters, that's been a lot of information. I've broken this video down into chapters, so feel free to revisit areas of the video. What are you most excited about for your players to experience in the Witchlight Carnival? And what are you most looking forward to in the wild that's beyond the Witchlight Carnival? Let me know in the comments below, and until next our paths cross, may Mr. Witch's watch not bump you in the head when it's packing up. Wait, we didn't talk about the watch. Or Mr. Light's Witchlight Vane. I'll do shorts for those. Game on!